Well, hello there. Are you ready for some fun? Well, now. We're going to read some more creepypastas because this stream is called Pastaroni on my spooky Skeletoni. If you want to join the stream, you can click on the link in the comments. Beginning credits and disclaimer. Original pasta made by SpongeBob Incident, the Resborn Sponge. This is the link to it. And Tanner's rewrite is right around here. Plus, Tanner's rewrite inspired me to do this. You already know who originally wrote this. Yes, I'm specifically referring to the Satanic Sponge. Originally, Elijah 6. Yes, I said it again because I neither cooked all this up at all. Chapter 1. Beginning. The current time is 4:32 p.m. and outside of my house it was nearly foggy as it was a cloudy day with little to no rain expected. All I did basically was just watch a marathon of SpongeBob SquarePants on the main Nickelodeon channel on my TV while eating cheese balls. I had nothing else better to do as I began to grow bored out of my mind. Retro Blues Clues tapes on VCR. Oh. Hey, Blueyak. I then thought about watching Richard Blues Clues tapes on a VCR, yet I didn't have any tapes, only the ABCs and 1-2-3's tape. Oh. So I thought about... I exited through my garage door, but a sticky note was attached onto the door. Hey, we're telling you that we've gone out to eat dinner together. I left you money to buy food or whatever you think you might need. Please don't do any mischievous activities nor behave while we're gone. Love you, Mom and Dad. I was left confused, yet with a pleasant feeling as I left the house while taking my keys, starting up my car and drove off to my destination. Once I got in, I took my look at the VHS section, searching for retro movies and shows that I personally like. At first, there were movies such as ones released by Disney, Warner Brothers, Paramount, etc. I kept looking, but no other movies above my interest. As I was going to leave, something colorful caught my eye. A videotape of a rare short movie of Blue's Clues that I've never even seen. Upon looking, the tape was just the show's logo plastered onto the right side cover of the tape. The text beneath it said, Blue's Halloween Mystery. The cover consisted of Blue looking curious while in a cartoony-like forest with fog around the place, as shadow resembling Tickety in the background. There was also a full moon covered by clouds and a dark night-light sky background. Not to mention that it had the squiggly orange lines at the top resembling in many Blue's Clues Nick Jr. and Nickelodeon home video releases. Confused yet excited, not caring if the tape was pre-owned or in its condition, I rushed up to the counter to pay my order. The moment the clerk saw the tape, his entire face went pale and lost all emotion. He told me that if I were to watch it, I'd go through insanity and get eaten alive. I thought to myself that he was just making jokes with me, so I paid the clerk with the money I got from my birthday a while ago and drove back home. Here's the cover. Once I got home, I unwrapped the tape and took a good look at its contents. There was nothing in the back of the cover, except for a sticky note slapped onto the cover. Help me! Help me! It has taken over my body, and the pain is unbearable! I beg you not to watch the tape, please! I was puzzled. It was just the videotape. What could be so bad inside the tape anyway? I unveiled the cover and looked at the tape. The tape, however, had the labels ripped and scratch marks on it, as if the tape was old or kept in a hot area. I could also make out a hidden message in the label at the bottom of the tape. It said, "Play with me." I was getting concerned about the possibility that this tape might be cursed, but I simply shrugged off the feeling and went to grab my VCR player and hooked it onto my TV. So I'd insert the tape into the player and then press the play button as I sat down, my back down, and got ready to watch a never before seen movie. And to my surprise, the tape actually worked despite its heavy damage and withering. Soon I knew. Soon that I knew, things would get horrifically down. Chapter 2: The Tape's Beginning. The tape began with the Paramount Still logo. However, it was just uh, the tape began with the Paramount Still logo. However, it was just a word mark, nothing else. This unsettled me, as I thought it was just an error or something. The coming soon, the coming to theaters message was then displayed normally before showing a preview of Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius trailer. However, after a trailer ended, the split second of image of a burnt corpse that seemed like Jimmy, his entire face was ripped off and burnt, along with his body completely mangled and bloody. This is lasted for a split second before showing the same blank Paramount logo and then showing the now available on video cassette message. The Junior VHS trailer was displayed and played normally, along with the Little Bear movie VHS and DVD promo, Rugrats in Paris VHS and DVD promo, the Rugrats 10th Anniversary Decade in Diapers Collector Edition, along with All Grown Up on VHS trailer. However, before the feature presentation started, that same message appeared. Instead of it saying "must devour," it was now said as "I'll be coming soon," all written in blood. The Paramount feature presentation then started, but the background extremely rusted, and there were claw marks on the screen, including a huge bite mark in the middle of the screen, as the Paramount looked like it was melting from massive heat. The, the usual trumpet music was replaced by an eerily whistling tune, and the voice of the announcer was demonically toned and heavily distorted. And when the feature presentation text zoomed in, a loud static noise erupted as it faded into the warning screen. But the text was in heavy mixes of jumbled words that had hidden messages on it, like "eat," mainly overlapping the words thousands of times. Not to mention that the background was in cracks and blood soaked through it too. 3 people watching. If you're watching the stream, be sure to click on the comment in the the link in the comments. However, something frightened me after the warning. The text disappeared as the screen begins to crack and open with a black background, and a pair of red eyes faded as the screen shook up and down before quickly shutting to black. The Paramount logo displayed on the screen. However, the changes made were very disturbing in many ways. The mountain stood with drenches of blood and guts, with cracks all over it and surrounding it, as well, and it being very unstable. The dark presence of the mountain also had bite marks and scratches all over the mountain, as it was in a very dark shade, with the other mountains of the verge collapsing. The sky was the color of bloody red as a bottom gradient, as the sky was dark blue above, and the clouds had malevolent appearance of unsettling and disturbing faces that resembled Mario 85. And they all seemed to be having a share of laughing expressions as they were all gray and distorted. The disturbing appearance of the logo was accompanied by a sudden distorted and reverbed music track from Amazing Grace, with sounds of screaming and ambulance siren noises heard in the background. I was like, what the hell am I even watching? Then the Nick Jr. Just For Me promo was shown. Technically, it's normal for the most part, except for the part where it showed the Nickelodeon banana logo. It switched to a different variant of the logo for a split second. The variant in question was that the banana looked rotten, and it had bite marks on it as part of the banana was squished out, and the Nickelodeon birthmark was heavily black. The sky was also in a dark shade of red, and there was text in a disturbing red font written in blood saying, "I am coming for you! You can hide from me!" During the promo, it was normal, until after a while it started to change. The contrast began to get darker, the audio quality grew distorted, and near the end is a bunch of scrambled, distorted noises. Once the Nick Jr. hippo clays appeared, the screen lagged before fading into a dark contrast image. Plus, the lagging then stopped, and then the same distorted tickety image unexpectedly appeared with a grin. As a much sinister grin, I'd say. Ominous, disturbing piano music from the 1930s tune was heard in the background as she began to speak in a text box that said, "Well, I've been mercifully awaiting for your arrival. Now that you're here, the fun can finally emerge for once. I'm super excited that I just can't wait." The tint on Tickety slowly starts to become a dark red-like color as her grin gets wider and unnaturally bigger. She suddenly screams, "Now let the endless implementation begin!" As the text spammed all around the screen before bursting into static, and then the promo will end normally. It would then display the familiar Nick Jr. face, clock bumper. But something was wrong. Face looked scared and didn't care about the clock on his face. He said something about what was an ever in a FaceTime segment. "Oh, hi there. Face here. Look, I really don't know why you're here, but you still have time before she catches you. Please, it's your only hope for your survival out of the grasp of hers. And if you don't, you'll certainly never be forgetting this moment for life. But well, Nick Julius is up next. Nick Jr. Please just listen to me." His speech gets interrupted by a howling noise. His face gets worried. Oh no! It's her! Run, kid, run! There isn't much time before it happens! He then heard a growling noise and the sounds of dashing as Tickety off screen ran towards him. "Listen, you don't have to do this. We can talk about this. No, 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 no! As the screen would lag out, cutting off the scene where Tickety was about to kill off Face before cutting the black. Thus, the real tape began by showing the Blues Cruise intro. And I sat there gritting my teeth in a moment of silence. I was hoping that the contents of the tape wouldn't get worse before that. But man, this really did go downhill more than ever. One day I'll regret watching this mess. So technically only one episode played, and it was Blue's big costume party before I could play the next episode. However, I checked the back of the tape's cover, and to my surprise, it had no episode selection in the back. It left me puzzled as I thought Nickelodeon probably left an error before releasing the tape. Nonetheless, I didn't really care, after all, due to the fact that I was bored. So I decided to watch the second episode, but that would mark the beginning of real-time mistakes. Chapter 3, episode beginning. The episode's beginning started with the intro. However, when the book opened, the setting inside the book was set into a nighttime scene, with a full moon being covered with clouds aback. There were also white stars in the background as the sky was in a color shading of dark blue. The intro itself was on as normal as in a regular Blue's Clues episode. The missing part of the intro that I noticed, however, was that the characters popping out of the windows, which had Slippery and Tickety, had her absent for some reason. It was confusing at first, but later shrugged it off, thinking it was an animation error. Anyways, it then panned up to the front door where Steve would open it. revealing him inside the house with Halloween decorations decorated around the house. I then noticed the skidoo frame was different, with it having a dark and spooky looking forest background with the wolf plastered onto the image. Excuse me. Oh, back to the episode. Steve would open the door and greet us in his usual happy tone in every episode. The scene then showed Steve walking over to the bedroom and heading over to the bedroom drawer where Tickety would be, but strangely, she wasn't there. However, Steve didn't notice this error as he returned to the camera and said that he found something very rare and special. He opens the drawer to grab out a reddish-orange dog toy, and it shows to be the camera. Steve claimed that it was one of Blue's old dog toys when she used to love playing with it as a little puppy. He said that he found it during his cleanup in the attic around this morning. Steve would then call Blue to come out, saying that he has something to show her, but she didn't arrive to his surprise. He asked the viewer if he had seen Blue anywhere around the room, until he had found Blue on behind the bed. He slowly took a look behind bed before suddenly Blue jumped out from behind the bed and happily barked and licked Steve. Steve laughed as Blue continued licking him before her stopping and getting off him. Steve asked her what she was doing, and she responded by barking, meaning she wasn't doing anything at the moment. Steve then wondered. Steve then surprised Blue by showing her off old dog toys. She barked happily before hugging Steve and saying thank you and barks. He gives the toy to Blue, but who then starts playing with it in glee as Steve watches with a worthy smile on his face. Then Steve would look back over to the bedroom drawer behind him, finally taking note that Tickety was missing, which in reaction left him confused. Steve and Blue both wondered where Tickety could be, themselves hearing a certain cough from a familiar voice that was heard off screen. Upon hearing it, both of them looked at each other and exchanged confused glances. They noticed the coughing sound was heard from the living room with the help of the children off screen. Steve and Blue walked into the living room and saw Tickety, who was sitting on the thinking chair. But Tickety looked like she wasn't feeling right. In fact, she looked far from normal. She had pieces of hair sticking out, which confused me because clocks don't normally have hair since they're working machine objects. Her face looked like it had almost grown a muzzle and her mouth was bleeding. Personally, I thought it was just a slight of ketchup or some red food coloring, but later figuring it out, wasn't ketchup nor food coloring the slightest. Steve and Blue then heard Tickety's cough again, which sounded similar to a cough from Blue's big musical movie. They walked over to the thinking chair where they both kneeled down to see Tickety. Upon hearing Steve calling her name, she looked up at Steve and spoke in a rather weak voice, as she lost her voice in Blue's big musical. Oh, Steve. Steve told her that she had been coughing for the past couple minutes, and both Steve and Blue wanted to know why. After what Steve said, Tickety looked at him with a serious expression and said, Okay, Steve, I need you to listen to me very clearly. I want you to promise Steve that you'll not let anybody know about this. Steve promised as Tickety took a deep breath, wasn't about to spill the beans, but was interrupted by a howl outside as Tickety looked up at the window and noticed the full bright moon that fog was being cleared out of. Both Steve and Blue were amazed at the gazing bright moon, but on the other hand, Tickety had rather the opposite experience with the moon. Steve asked Tickety if she's okay, but all she did was shivering in fear, acknowledging what's about to happen next. She tried to grow rows of fangs, only causing her mouth to bleed out more. Blue was scared by this as he barked in fear. Soon enough, Tickety's voice would grow a bit deeper and raspy as she then shouted in fear that she had to go before jumping off the thinking chair and hopping herself away quickly. Tickety, wait! Steve shouted, but Tickety was nowhere to be seen. After that awkward moment, Steve and Blue were left confused and concerned. Blue barked, saying that what just happened was quite an unexpected, strange moment. Steve stated that she's been acting strangely for the past couple of weeks, and he doesn't seem to know why. He then stated that she might have a secret or something. This made Blue bark again, now saying that she'd in fact have a hidden secret that she was hiding, which got Steve's attention. Steve asked what was the secret, which made Blue run up and jump her paw towards the screen as her paw print was imprinted on the screen, indicating that they were going to play Blue's Clues to find out Tickety's hidden secret. This made Steve get up and sing as we were going to play Blue's Clues song. After this, Steve explained it that we're going to play Blue's Clues. Blue's prints on the clues means Blue's Clues. Suddenly, the paw print that Steve looked at replied with squeaking sound before growing fur and eventually turns into a werewolf, or should I say, wereprint, with thick and heavy fur. The color of its paw print much darker, and shaped into a werewolf paw instead of a dog paw. Turns out the paw print indeed had a secret to tell, as Steve was shocked seeing the paw print's real secret was the identity of a werewolf. Steve exclaimed that the paw print was now a werewolf, which, after saying that, he made the wereprint into a howl. Steve said that it was like paw print became a werewolf. This made the wereprint grow red eyes and angrily growled at him before running off screen, leaving Steve amused and shocked. Well, that was definitely something, Steve said as he turned to the camera before asking what we needed for our game. The handy-dandy notebook. Steve went over to the side table drawer to collect his notebook. The side table looked distressed and worried about something. She said that she was worried about Tickety. He comforts her and tells her that she'll be fine eventually. The side table gives Steve his notebook as he goes off to sing his Blue's Clues theme. After this, Steve asked if I could help figuring out what Tickety's secret is, to which I marked my agreement to it. Then Steve was about to walk until we stopped for a moment to ask which way Blue went, until the off-screen kids, said Blue went the right way as she popped out while barking. And so Steve walked towards that left, indicating that he was heading to the backyard. Clue 1. Hairy situation. Upon entering the backyard, he walked to the left, monitoring for us to follow him. But behind him was a trail of pink fur, but with Blue's paw print on it, indicating in first clue. One of the kids exclaimed that they found a clue, which alerted him. Behind him was a trail of pink fur with Blue's paw imprint on it. He walked over and kneeled down to look at the fur. This prompted him to draw the fur onto his notebook. After drawing it, the fur appeared above Steve, makes a scratching noise. Tickety's secret sure wouldn't be excessive fur, right? Meanwhile, Shovel and Pail were facing a problem together. Their sandcastle seemed like it was destroyed by someone. They didn't know who destroyed it, yet they asked Steve for help. Blue, on the other hand, barked at Steve, telling him that she had found something. She points at the sand prints that were trailing out of the sand pit. The four then proceed to follow the path of the sand prints until they've reached a split path with 3 ways. The left path had dog prints. The middle path had sand prints that resembled Tickety's sand prints, and the right one had cat prints. The two thought for a moment before asking the viewers of which path is Tickety's path. The kids responded with the middle one, which prompted them to move and follow the middle path. They kept following the path until another split path was reached. The left had Tickety's prints, the middle one was dog prints, and the right one was squirrel prints. Steve asked the kids again for the right path, and they chose left, which were Tickety's prints. And so they continued to follow until they reached one last split, which had fox prints on the left, squirrel prints on the middle, and Tickety's prints on the right. Shovel and Pail followed up and told Steve that this was getting aggravating for them. The viewers helped them with choosing the right path, helping the four to follow the right path and eventually reaching the end of the path where a giant pile of dirt stood in front of them. Suddenly, the sound of a familiar voice could be heard muffling underneath the dirt. Blue got all of this under control and began digging out of the dirt, revealing Periwinkle under the dirt. Periwinkle was thankful that they found him, but asked if he was the one who destroyed the castle, which made him respond with a no answer, and that he wasn't near the castle. Instead, she would respond with Tickety responsible for the destruction of the sand castle. Steve wonders why, which prompted Berrywinkle to put some thought into it. As a flashback transition showed up, similar to the one in Big Blue Mystery, as a flashback scene began. Chapter 5, Flashback Intermission. The flashback opened with Periwinkle practicing his magic tricks. While he wasn't noticing, Tickety came up behind him and swung him in the face with the bat, knocking out him unconscious as a little bit of blood was seen from Periwinkle. And his body lay there. Tickety dragged him by the leg with her so tight that blood started to spew out. Then Tickety would drag Periwinkle off screen. The screen cuts to Periwinkle slowly waking up in a dirt hole, soon realizing that Tickety was burying him. Periwinkle grew scared and puzzled while asking her what she was doing to him. Tickety in flashback ignores him and continues to bury him like a dog. All he remembers was Tickety saving him for the last as her feast. It showed Tickety saying that she'd been saving Periwinkle for the last as her feast and makes a small wicked grin before ending the flashback. All after hearing of this, the four were visibly shocked, especially Pale, who was in absolute fear of knowing that Tickety had slowly become a monster. Before Blue and Steve could head on back, the sounds of glass being broken and loud screaming can be heard. Blue immediately got scared and hid behind Steve, shivering and barking at the same time. Periwinkle, on the other hand, couldn't deal with the current situation and ran back to his home. Pale and Shovel went to rebuild their sandcastle, while Steve and Blue went back to the house. The two stormed into the house. And went. The sounds were getting louder, with the accompanying sounds of furniture being thrown. They went inside the room asking if Tickety was okay, but were interrupted and shocked seeing the wild behavior of Tickety's overreaction. She was literally hopping madly around the entire room and banging the floor with her hands. "Whoa there, Tickety, what's going on?" Steve asked. "Can't talk right now! Busy having a clucking seizure!" screamed Tickety. Now that had shocked me right there. Even though she didn't try to swear on a freaking kids show. Blue was surely shocked as much as I am. She gasped and covered her mouth. "Tickety language!" Steve shouted. "How am I supposed to not needing to be swearing when I'm dealing with a damn seizure?" Tickety yelled as she continued screaming while slamming her fists onto the ground. "Tickety, just calm down," Steve asked while Blue went to get a blanket and cover her with it so she could calm down. "I'm not really sure if I really want to calm down," Tickety responded. "Please, Tickety, you have to. If you're able to calm down, then I can help you," Steve said. Tickety began to wind down and started taking a couple of deep breaths as she stopped her tantrum. Well, to be honest, here, I really didn't need any help anyway, Tickety said. "Honestly, I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. My mood's been drowning lately, and I can't seem to get a hold of myself. I just need some time alone, please." "But Tickety, we just want the best," Steve said, and his sentence was soon interrupted by Tickety. "Look, I know you want to help me, but I really don't want any help from anyone right now. Now please get out of my room, will ya?" Tickety stated before turning away from Steve. Tickety's voice. Wait, Tickety, you see? This is me and Blue's room. We both sleep here together, so technically it means that it isn't really your room, Steve explained. Tickety's voice suddenly grew a bit deepening as she yet again spoke. "Well, I don't really know what's wrong with me today, but apparently this room we're all called in is a bedroom, and it's been called like that for a reason, you know. Remember that I also sleep here too." Wait. Tickety soon realized that her voice grew deeper and grew confusion among herself. Blue barked in question as to why Tickety's voice grew deeper. "Trust me, Blue, I barely even know why," Tickety responded before saying, Maybe it's best for me to chill out for a minute. I personally think something's wrong with me here. Yeah, but don't worry about it. We'll dig into the case and find out going on here, Steve stated. Say, I'm glad to have good friends who I can look up after. Before Tickety could finish, her wind-up key emerged into a pinkish-white tail. Steve was amazed and shocked by the fact that Tickety somehow grew a tail. But for Tickety, she awkwardly blushed before hiding her tail and claiming that she never had a tail. This just keeps getting stranger. I'll say, even I'm getting concerned as well. Oh, he says hi. I'll say, even I'm getting quite concerned as well. A thermostat appears behind Steve, whose name is claimed to be Thurman. Now this left me as sure as puzzled as heck, but shrugged it off, thinking it's just a new character introduction. Back to the story. Steve asked if he found any clues around, but to his response, no. But he knows what had been going on with Tickety earlier. Therefore, Steve asked Thurman more questions revolving around Tickety, but he had responds by saying that he knows Tickety's mad about something. At least we'll get to know soon. While Thurman, while Thurman and Steve scavenged around for clues in the bathroom area, Blue's paw print was printed on what looked like to be Tickety's sharp fangs. Thurman took a closer look at her fangs, making it count as a second clue. Even the kids known as Thurman, even the kids known as Thurman pointed out to Steve. The kids answered the second clue as Tickety's fangs. Steve turned around, seeing the clue which was on Tickety's fang. Hang on, if my short fangs are the second clue, what does that make me the clue? Tickety questions. If her fangs were on Tickety, that will easily make her count as a clue. The fangs. Steve then got out his handy-dandy notebook and flipped through the second page to draw the fangs. By drawing a straight line, then adding two upside-down triangles on each end, and there appeared to the fangs. Steve now had two clues for the game, but still needed the third and final clue. The first clue so far he had was fur, which made a scratching noise. The next clue was fangs, as Steve's face forms into fangs, which made a biting sound. Wait, hang on a second. Okay. The next clue was fangs, as Steve's face forms into fangs, which had made a biting noise. They must find their third clue soon before the awakening. Mail time, mail time, mail time, mail time, mail time. Mail time already, Mailbox groaned. And there goes Steve singing his Mailtime song before sitting on his thinking chair. However, Mailbox wasn't ready as he needed a minute before calming out. He was somehow heard taking pills off screen before extending himself inside the house. However, he looked way different as he looked overstressed. His eyes were in form of bloodshot eyes, red with eye bags under his eyes, with more eye bags under his eye bags. He was twitching along with his eyes because of the lack of sleep he got. Steve noticed his look and asked him why he looked so pale and tired. I apologize if I'm dazed out, Steve. I just can't get my beauty sleep because of what's going around with Tickety. I literally cannot stand this nonsense anymore, Mailbox explained. Steve took a notice and asked Mailbox for a letter, in which he did, by growing a pair of arms and opening himself to hand the letter to Steve. This in question really shocked me because Mailbox was just an ordinary mailbox, not some random object human. Anyways, after handing up the letter, Mailbox left the scene, and Steve says, "We just got a letter song," before opening up the letter to see a family of four in a campfire at night. They were eating delicious s'mores, telling stories, and explaining about different nocturnal animals. After that, they all waved goodbye for Steve, as he then would close up the letter. Oh wow, camping sure would be a lot of fun. But the thing is, Tickety has been feeling well lately, Steve says. Chapter 8, Starvation. As Steve was going to look for a third and final clue, the phone suddenly rang, alerting him to pick it up. On the call was Paprika, who was on the verge of being something or something. "Steve, please, I need your help." "Hey, Paprika, what seems to be the matter?" "It's about Chickadee. She has a dying urge to eat me up. She's growling at me." "What? Okay, hang on right there, bud. I, please hurry. I'm begging you." Steve hung up the phone and rushed to the kitchen, who was followed by Blue, and headed towards Paprika's room. Technically, we meant the cabinet, and opening it left Steve and Blue shocked. "No, wait! This isn't what you think!" shouted Tickety. Tickety was apparently trying to eat Paprika alive, and which others should never do. She claimed that the act she was active on because she wouldn't starve herself to death. Tickety explained in absolute hunger that she just felt hungry and wanted something to eat, before suddenly twitching and messing her speech up and then telling herself to snap out of it. Paprika said that Tickety needed at least something to calm her down, which prompted Blue to grab out 3 different trays of food, one which was steak and pork chops, the second tray being a glass of orange juice, and the third being an apple. Steve chooses Steve chose one of the options on the tray and told the viewers which tray would be better for Tickety. The kids obviously chose the steak and pork chops, which made Blue give the side to Tickety and her feasting on it. Suddenly, after eating the steak and pork chops, Tickety felt a tingling sensation on her feet, indicating to her to scratch it up. Then her feet grew longer, making her feet now a pair of legs. Her itching then ceased, and she looked at the now towering legs at the now towering legs as she had, and she could make out one word. "Huh?" Tickety knew that something was indeed wrong. Then out of nowhere, Thurman came in with spider legs? How weird can this possibly get? "Oh boy, you sure can say that again," Thurman replied to Tickety. Blue barked in complete shock and fear upon seeing Thurman crawling on the countertop with spider legs, while Tickety, on the other hand, What the?" Tickety shouted with confusion. "Thurman, you're a spider?" Steve asked. "Well, of course I am, Steve," Thurman explained. "I'm just a friendly spider who has no intentions of hurting anyone, although my legs are considered a secret." "Oh yeah, I almost forgot. We still need to figure out what Tickety's secret is," Steve stated, with Blue barking in agreement. "Oh right, I must admit, I kinda have a secret because of that Cal 22. Tickety nervously responds. "What?" As Steve and Blue went off to find their third clue, while Tickety left the scene by walking away with her legs. How weird can this get? However, for some reason, Steve somehow remembered her walking once her first growth spurt. But then he told Blue to get moving. Thurman told Tickety that she hopes she gets better soon. Chapter 9, Clue 3, The Forest. It then showed the living room where Blue ran up skidooing inside the forest painting from earlier. Steve saw this and did the same as Blue did. The two ended up in the same dark forest painting and noticed a big cave in front of them. The two discussed if they should go in or not, and soon after they agreed to go in the big dark cave. As they were walking, Steve was carrying a lantern that he picked up as he entered the cave to help him, and Blue followed through until... "Who dares to step in these dark and steep caves?" A loud booming voice echoed across the cave as Steve let out a short startled shriek as Blue barked in fear. Boo! Barked in fear, jumping onto Steve's arms, shaking slightly due to her being scared. Steve explained that he and Blue weren't enemies and were just playing Blue's Clues. The voice answered if they were playing Blue's Clues, thus Steve explaining why they were here. Then outside the shadows, literally, a large, tall, gray wolf with glasses, holding a stone cane, wearing a black suit and wearing a scarf around its neck, was sitting on a throne made out of stone, towering above Steve and Blue. "Well then, you've come to the right place. But first I must introduce myself to you. My name is Luke, also known as the Wise Wolf," told Luke. "Oh, well, it's a pleasure meeting you, Luke. My name is Steve, and this is my puppy, Blue." Steve introduced him as Blue barked to say hello. "It's pleasant seeing you two. Now listen. I'm in possession of your third clue, but in order to earn it, you must do something for me." "Well, what should I do for you?" Steve asked. "You must answer my 3 riddles. Once completed, my son Henry will reward you with the third clue," Luke explained. "Oh, I see," Steve said as he turned to the camera and asked the viewers if they would help. After that, Steve was ready to answer the 3 riddles from Luke. "Your riddle goes as this. Riddle 1. I am round, but shine bright, as I can only be visible in the night, and sometimes I can make people become afraid. What am I?" Steve thought for a moment before turning to the viewers to ask what the answer is to the riddle. The moon. Whenever I do this, it makes me want to prowl, and then I don't feel very foul. So as an alternate route when I just want to growl, what am I doing? Steve thought to himself that it was quite a tough one before asking the viewers for help. Howling. Luke is getting plowed, slowly clapping his hands. Riddle 3. I'm a clock, and I have a passion to ring my bells, but now I'm feeling under the weather, not doing so well, as I'm in fact doing sort of well. Who am I? Steve knew who that clock was, but thought for a moment, and then turned to the viewers as, who is Luke, the Wise Wolf, describing? As in a moment of silence took place, a split image of what looked like Tickety Talk with blood drenched around her face, her eyes completely black, her displaying a wide, unnatural smile, while having her claws sharp as a knife, and so with her fangs. The image was in a black background with text above her written in blood that said, "Consume the alive!" As a millisecond after, another one appears, which had a dismembered head of Blue, with her spine attached, as realistic eyes was seen above Blue, with text with text also written in blood saying, "I am coming!" Immediately after the split-second images, the scene goes back to Steve, where the silence went on for about 2 seconds. Tickety talk. Luke is proud. The riddles have been completed. Henry comes out with the third clue by the order of Luke. Henry hands Steve this third clue, but realizes that the clue was missing, so he went back to look for it. With the help of the viewers, Henry was able to find the third clue, what seemed to look like a drawing inside of a frame. The drawing depicted a picture of Henry on a cliff, howling at the moon. Not to mention that the frame had Blue's paw print on it. Both Steve and Blue were very impressed, until he noticed that the paw print was there, indicating a third clue. So he pulled out his handy-dandy notebook and drew a wolf howling in a full moon. All clues had been collected. So Steve and Blue exited out of the painting, and headed towards the thinking chair to solve Tickety's secret, merging all three clues together. Steve thought about the clues he all gathered one by one. Fur, fangs, howling at the moon. What could those make up as Tickety's secret? Maybe Tickety has a pet with pink fur and fangs who likes to howl in the night. No, that's just silly. Maybe the fur can go onto Tickety's body and the fangs would be inside her mouth and she could howl at the moon. Wait, so Tickety's secret is a werewolf? We just figured out Blue's clues! This, of course, prompted Steve to stand up out of the thinking chair and sang his usual "We just figured out Blue's Clues" song. It was time to confront the clock. Chapter 10: Confrontation. It cuts to Tickety in the bedroom, still standing tall, his feet now grown in feet paws, gazing outside of her window, looking at the moon that has been covered with a bit of fog, but still shining bright. At that moment, Steve and Blue walk in to see Tickety. Upon hearing Steve greet her, she grew frightened and startled as she turned around in an instant and became worried due to the sudden presence of Steve and Blue. "Hey, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be in here!" Tickety shouted in fear. Steve then kneeled down to Tickety's level and told her that he isn't here for a fuss, he only wanted to know her true secret. Tickety told him that he doesn't have enough time before the moon rises. Steve told her to let go of the feelings and tell him her true secret. And so Tickety confessed that she was indeed a wereclock. Upon telling him the truth, she cried as Steve pats her head, calming her down, not knowing it was now fur. Steve soon noticed as her tail popped out, leading to her hands growing sharp claws, which are used to manipulate a person with only just one scratch. That's when the transformation took place. 12 a.m. Midnight will lurk its victims. Tickety's fur grew all over her clock body, leading to her colors growing darker, with her quietly sobbing due to the sudden pain in the transformation. Steve took in full notice, looking at the changes with Tickety as Blue barked that midnight had hit and the transformation was beginning to take its place. Tickety then screamed for them to get out, and he and Blue slowly back away from her while Tickety's voice deepened as she groaned in pain. It cuts to the living room where Steve and Blue were seen exiting out of the bedroom. Steve asked if there was something wrong with Tickety. Blue barked in concern as if in response, as if she didn't know what was going on with Tickety. The scene cutted back to Tickety, who was on the floor, screaming painfully as her fangs sharpened, forcing her mouth to bleed more. Along with that, her snout began to form in a wolf-like snout. It showed back to the living room with Steve and Blue hearing Tickety's grunts and screams. Eddie decided he needs to help her. It cuts again to Tickety, who is still screaming, but part of her screams turned into growls, while growing a wolf muzzle along like wolf ears. Again, it showed the living room as Blue barked at Steve, telling him not to help as it wasn't the best idea, in which Steve replied with him not wanting to get Tickety hurt. Excuse me for a moment. Stay watching. I'll be right back. Okay, I am back. The scene cuts to the bedroom as I can now see Tickety, now known as the Wereclock. Steve enters so he can try to help her. Steve asks if she was fine, but Tickety responds that she now felt like a complete monster and claimed that she didn't have enough time left. Steve letters her knowing that it was really him, but Tickety would get up on all four and start growling at him. I can't take it anymore! Yeah. Hang on, let me get my water for this part. Tickety screamed like a maniac and lunged at him. Luckily, in a hurry, Steve jumped back and made a dash towards the door. Tickety was heard pounding on the door in a violent manner. Steve shouted, "You stay in there, beast!" Blue barked at Steve, asking what was going on, to which Steve explained to her that Tickety's gone insane and that she needed to hide before anything else could happen. That was until Tickety is still in a Wereclock form. I busted down the door as she said, "You thought that was gonna make me stay in there? My place? I didn't think so!" Steve told Blue to run off while he handles Tickety, as Blue nods before running off. Meanwhile, Tickety was growling at Steve as he told her to back off. But as she could charge at him, she suddenly got led by Thurman, who is now a complete spider with an additional 2 more eyes and fangs. "Wow, thanks for the save, Thurman." Steve thanked Thurman, which replied back, "Don't mention it, Steve. Now run for it." Steve would then run off screen as he headed to the kitchen. What the hell does this read? Hang on. Our slaughter will not commence. Our slaughter will not commence. Oh, that's what it said. Chapter 11. Slaughter's Awakening. The scene cuts to the kitchen with Miss Salt and Miss Pepper was cooking dinner together until Steve came in, telling the two that they needed to run now. As Steve was about to explain why, however, Tickety jumped into the shot, giving them a good scare. "Get in my tummy, you peasants!" Tickety yelled before holding down Miss Pepper and consuming the entirety of her up. "Honey, no!" Mr. Salt screamed as he witnessed the death of his own wife shaker. Tasty fillet. Side table shoots Tickety with a M16A1, causing her to bleed a bit. Side table upsetted her to leave Blue's friends alone. Steve asks Side table where did he get the gun from. Side table quotes that he doesn't want to know where he got this from, and it's a dangerous world out there. Steve confusingly said, "Right," and ran out of the kitchen while Mr. Salt was taking in how his wife was dead. It cuts to the living room as Steve ran into the shot, but Tickety was sprinting after him, trying to catch him. Suddenly, Tickety got shot again by Side Table, making her growl in pain and anger before slowly getting up and growling at Side Table. "No! Please, Tickety, you've got to snap out of it!" Side Table angrily asked. "Oh, and why should I gave it too much fun. As a matter of fact, my next meal, so..." "Excuse me!" Mailbox shouted off screen before panning to the right, showing Mailbox. This time, however, he was completely ticked off. "I'm taking a well-deserved nap until that howling noise interrupted my nap, and I stand myself to see all this? I don't think so!" Mailbox screamed aggressively. "Sir, I left those wise words yours in there, Mr. Purple Retard." Tickety insulted, angering Mailbox. "Why, you little..." Tickety then makes a leap towards Mailbox, interrupting his sentence as she rips his half off and starts devouring his entire skull. As Mailbox lets out a painful scream before eventually dying as Tickety ate the remaining parts of the Mailbox. Just when Side Table was about to shoot Tickety once again, Tickety snatches the M16A1 and shoots him in the eyes, making him yell, "Ah! My eyes! I can't see a thing!" Tickety eventually did the same thing to Side Table, but ripping and eating his face off. "The skulls must be consumed." Steve witnessed the death of Side Table as Blue as hiding behind the thinking chair, shivering in fear, hoping that she wouldn't get caught by a monster. Steve angrily told Tickety to stop this damn nonsense for once and for all. As Tickety stated that she was having too much fun and was going to feast on every last survivor in this household, but almost immediately her face got slapped by Shovel, who was being held by Pale. Tickety slid to the left, still on her feet, and looked at the right side of her face, which had a bruise on it as it began bleeding a bit. "We're just trying to help you out, Tickety. Just admit what you've done was wrong, and we can spare you," Pale said to Tickety. "Why should I even try? I was barely even finished yet!" Tickety growled. Then Thurman came in to grab hold of her, but got eaten within a split second before saying, "Man spiders just stink." "Darn it, Tickety, I just installed that last week!" Steve shouted. "Does a frying fraction even care?" Tickety replied. "Well, of course not, Dumbo." Tickety interrupted. Paul and Shovel ran up towards Tickety, telling her that they're sorry, and slammed Shovel hard onto Tickety's face, making her collapse to the ground. Steve, Shovel, and Pale took a look at Tickety's unconscious body before looking at each other. They thought they'd taken care of her until she slowly rose up and ripping Shuttle's head off and shoving it up Pale's mouth. Steve then tells Tickety what she is doing is wrong, and saying that she still has a little bit of good inside of her. Tickety then had one option to pretend that she'd understand what she did was wrong. As Tickety apologized, Steve forgave her as they both gave out a hug. However, Tickety suddenly grabbed Steve's head, saying, "I lied for before slashing his head off and eating his head up. Tickety licked her lips as she ran towards the bathroom. The scene cuts to Slippery, who was bathing himself, before Tickety breaking in the bathroom. "Hey, Tickety, what's the matter?" "How's a better dive, Soapy?" Tickety shouted before grabbing him and slashing him apart and drowning him in the bathtub. "Whoa, that was surely a splash," Tickety said before laughing like a lunatic. "Excuse me, punk, I'd like to have a word with you," a familiar voice shouted, catching Tickety's attention. She turns around seeing Mr. Salt, who was holding a rolling pin. "You may have left a mark on my soul by killing my wife, but I'll never let you kill anyone else in this household," Mr. Salt berated. "Oh, I can see," Tickety said. "All right, another mark on you, then." She snatched the rolling pin and shattered Mr. Salt completely and devouring his remains. "Oh, that's the spot," she said. Then Paprika and Cinnamon slowly hopped on into the shot, but gasped upon seeing their dead father. Both of them broke down into tears, knowing that their parents are dead. But what's the matter now? I said because their parents are gone, Tickety mocked. Paprika, upon hearing this, stopped crying before glaring at Tickety with anger. "You! I'm gonna kill you for what you did!" Paprika shouted. "No!" Tickety grabbed both Paprika and Cinnamon and feasted on them one by one. But then comes on in, still scared about what happened, but is more confident than barking, indicating that she must stop hurting her friends because it is far from what are wrong. But Tickety didn't care. She only wanted the flesh consumed. What she did next frightened me. She started to strangle Blue with her massive tail. "Look, that is ever planned to happen. You're literally that excuse of a color, because you're blue for a reason. That's why this whole game is about Blue's Clues," Ticky berated to Blue. Now, little Blue Pup, behave for me while I consume you up alive." Tickety then began to squeeze Blue by the neck with her head popping out from her body while bleeding out, as Tickety ate Blue's organs. After eating her organs, she got up with blood all over her mouth and her teeth stained in the blood. She claimed the meal was tasty, but she isn't satisfied yet. She slowly walked off screen as it faded to black. I thought the episode was over, but unfortunately I was wrong. Uh, Chapter 12. something. A new scene fades in which we see Periwinkle heading inside the house, which was on the verge of burning down. Upon seeing the state of the house, Perry was in shock when he saw what happened. "Jeepers creepers, isn't that one heck of a mess?" Periwinkle said, with a hint of gasping. "Who would have done this?" "Who wouldn't let it happen?" said a familiar voice, leading to Periwinkle to take note of the voice as he turned his head, before the camera cut to the ruins of the house, where a shadowy figure emerged from the fires. That figure turned out to be Tickety. However, she looked worse than last time, as she stood taller, and her muzzle was much more elongated, with her eyes standing in a bloodshot red color, and her tail was bigger, bushy, and fluffier. "Tickety," Perry noticed. "Is that you? Really you?" "We meet again, Perry," Tickety greeted. "What happened to our household, and where is everyone?" asked Periwinkle. "Well, let's just say they all got devoured," Tickety explained with a wicked grin. Periwinkle, upon hearing what Tickety said, slowly displayed a shock with a mix of frightened expression on his face as he screamed, "What? What do you mean by devoured?" "I'll say I ate every last unlucky survivor," Tickety said as it then cuts to Periwinkle, still frightened. "And must I say I adored every last minute of it." She then lets out a laugh with a mix of a howl laughter. Periwinkle then stopped for a moment, staring down with anger and dismay. "Now, excuse me, a cake is waiting for me to devour." "Specific cake?" Tickety walked off screen before coming back, carrying a really nasty cake, a cake that was made with the remaining corpses of the victims Tickety killed earlier, without paprika and cinnamon and cardamom needed. All Periwinkle could do was drop his mouth in disbelief, as Tickety asked if he liked her cake. He wouldn't answer, however, due to him being stiff and frightened as if. No response from Perry was given, as Tickety gave him a slice of cake. Periwinkle then started to get fuel up as Tickety puts out an evil-looking smiley face. An edited track theme, similar to the beginning of the Friday Night Funk and Mistful Crimson Morning song, Boulder Brash, Darn a Wet Fart, began playing in the background as Periwinkle grew more angrier. You, you, you damn monster! I'm going to end your life!" Periwinkle yelled with realistic emotion. "Oh, come on, Perry. Why not have one tiny bite? It's really, must say, it's really tasty, I must say," Tickety said before he took the slice and slowly moving it towards Perry's mouth. Periwinkle immediately shoved Tickety along with the slice away as he yelled, "There is no way I'll eat your pure #1 disgusting corpse cake! What you're doing is downright horrendous and disgraceful! You must snap out of this man's now, or we are going to have some cutbacks!" Periwinkle got up on his feet and started bawling, and showed off his claws. I found this surprisingly strange, since Periwinkle didn't have claws in the actual show. "Oh, so now it's going to be a brawl, eh?" Tickety asked, before moving the cake again and getting in all fours. "Well, it's a fight we're going to get." Periwinkle shouted the word clock before her, and Periwinkle charged towards each other while roaring out like crazed maniacs. Periwinkle had laid a punch at Tickety's right cheek before she grabbed Perry and slammed him to the ground, throwing him at a tree and causing his head to bleed a bit. Periwinkle wiped the blood off his face before getting back up and sprinting towards Tickety and laying punches at her and slamming her side to side. Tickety suddenly grabbed Periwinkle by the leg as Perry bit Tickety's arm with his teeth, making her grunt and growl in pain. Periwinkle made the opportunity to run away from Tickety as she started sprinting down after him. "Leave me alone!" yelled Periwinkle. "Not until I feast you alive!" Tickety replied before laughing like a foolish lunatic. "I swear when I get my hands on you, stop running, I'll rip your face off like a little bit." Periwinkle suddenly got hit by a tree before completing his sentence. Tickety then grabbed Periwinkle by the leg again, like she was about to feast on him. Periwinkle, however, pretended to surrender and say that she had won the fight, of course. Tickety was about to feast on him right before he scratched Tickety in the eye and kicks her. "Can't believe that you fell for it." "Why?" Tickety replied. "You may have feasted on everyone I love, but I've got more strength than you," Periwinkle explained to Tickety. "Now, if you excuse me, I'll be heading home." As Periwinkle was about to walk home, however, the scenery faded to black, except for Tickety and Periwinkle as he froze there and turned around slowly. A low, distorted humming noise was faintly heard in the background as Tickety began to do the unthinkable. She would open up with her jaw, which would extend itself in length as an unnatural, impossible way. The humming noise grew gradually louder as it then showed Periwinkle, who was extremely frightened and stiff, before zooming into his face at a rapid rate. As the screen suddenly glitches with Periwinkle's face now heavily distorted as his eyes were dangling out of his sockets. His mouth was agape at a huge bite mark in the middle of his forehead with half of his brain exposed. It shows a black screen for around 4 seconds before showing Tickety's feet. 4 seconds before showing Tickety's feet, before Periwinkle's decapitated head fell down beneath her, making a thud sound in the process. Tickety could also be heard muttering out. It then faced the house as Tickety stares at the camera. "My job's complete. My feast was outstandingly delightful, and soon you will be my next meal." Tickety spoke in a dark, chilling tone. "Why the hell would they ever think about approving this in the first place? And besides, there's plenty more fish in the sea, if you know what I mean. Isn't that right, Mailbox?" Tickety spoke before nudging to Mailbox and making a sinister grin. "Please, somebody help me! Anybody!" Mailbox begged in a slow, distorted, and glitchy voice. "Oh, please, Mailbox, no one's gonna save you now. Just lay there and perish already, will ya?" said Tickety. "Well, I'm off to devour and bake some more tasty meals." "Oh, Tickety, get in the name of Zeus over here right now!" shouted a voice off screen. Hang on. Chapter 13. Your fault. The camera pans to the right as a tall, lanky cat with blue fur and dark blue spots walks in the shot, which Tickety looks to the overcooked figure before laughing her hardest. This, of course, pissed off the cat and threw her to the floor with face flat against the ground. "You're coming with me now," the cat demanded. Tickety got up and turned around before looking back at the cat and Tickety got up and turned around before looking back at the cat and responding with a simple, whatever. Besides, this cat's going to be another great meal for my feast." Tickety walked into the now destroyed house as the cat sat down on the thinking chair, which was heavily covered in scratches. "Let me tell you, Tickety, I'm very disappointed in you," the cat sighed. "I don't care." I was only having my fun, Tickety responded. All was worth it anyway. You really think so? Because you think consumers like you can devour people's courses and burning the entire house is fun? The cat said, starting to get a little aggressive. Because to me, it sounds like you've tried getting along, except for one thing. You didn't. And didn't care about your own friends? Those were your own friends! Why would you even think about committing this arson for fun? Like I said earlier, it was all worth a bet, Tickety replied, obviously not giving a crap about the cat's words. You've definitely made a complete out of yourself, aren't you? Said the cat, a bit angry. There wasn't any need to do all of that, you know. You should have just stayed away from looking at the moon. Tickety ignored the cat, however. So that's how you want to be, huh? The cat said, opening up his paws, leading to his claws opening as well. Might as well do the trick then. And the cat scratches claws and bruises Tickety repeatedly while she grunts in pain. Oh, oh, gee, give me a break up here! Oh, oh! The scene faded to white and stayed like that for 1.5 seconds, before fading back into a scene where Tickety was reverted back to normal, laying on the ground. The cat then walked up to Tickety, who was accompanied by someone. That someone, however, looked like SpongeBob! Turns out he's a sponge and can regenerate himself if he was dead. Tickety Tickety slowly got up and noticed the cat and SpongeBob. It was really sad it had to go like this, but you know, if it weren't for that moon up in the sky, Tickety replied, starting to sob, slowly realizing what she's done. Now tell me, Tickety, the cat said as he and SpongeBob asked Tickety some questions. Who helped you when you lost your voice in the music show? Who brought you satisfaction when waking them up? Who helped you get your pieces back together once you woke up? Most importantly, who were the people that really cared about you and you needed you the most? Tickety started breaking out more tears. Finally, knowing her mistakes, she responded with, My friends. Exactly, but you didn't care about them. All you did was turn back against them and turn them all into meals. And you didn't bother listening to what your friends said. Now look at where you're at now, all alone with no one else on your side. Consider this all your fault. Oh, yeah. Exactly, but you didn't care about them. All you did was turn back against them and turn them all into meals, and you didn't bother listening to what your friends said. Now look at where you're at now, all alone with no one else on your side. Consider this all your fault. SpongeBob spoke. Tickety fell on her knees before softly sobbing, and then looking at the cat and SpongeBob as she said she wanted another chance, but neither the cat nor SpongeBob could forgive him, and that she needed a punishment for the actions. The punishment was a cat grabbing out a tank of gasoline and a box of matches. He takes the lid of the tank off and throws the tank, letting gasoline flow through the floor. Uh, he, and then throws the tank, letting gasoline flow through the floor. SpongeBob then got out the matches, lighting them all up at once. Tickety, upon seeing this, grew fearful of what was coming ahead of her. You are going to drop those matches, right? Tickety fearfully asked, shivering in fear. Sorry, Clock Girl, but this is why I don't make promises. The cat snorted before I instructed SpongeBob to drop the matches onto the pot of gasoline, creating a huge fire in the house. As the cat and SpongeBob both ran out of the house, soon enough the house caught on fire. Tickety ran up to the window and pleaded for help, but no anvil came for her. She then stood there and hung her head in shame while quietly sobbing. We're very sorry this had to come. I really tried to stop this evil curse from possessing her, but I was really busy reading that one book about, that somehow became reality. Spoke the cat. This is why you should take notes on not every story is gonna have a happily ever after ending. Yes, I saw you helping those two, so I only wanted to give you thanks for helping them. Wherever they are now, they're at least in a better place, SpongeBob said before him and Skunky singing the So Long song. Now it's time for So Long, but we'll just sing just one more song. Thank you for trying your best. Time to take some rest. With him and you, along with me, they could do anything that we want to do. Skunky and Sunky and SpongeBob spoke their final words before they walked off screen. See ya. We'll see you again soon, I hope. Tickety stopped, becoming depressed and putting her head down in shame with her hands over her face. Chapter 14. Our End. The episode finally came to a close by rolling the Nick Jr. is Just For Me closing promo, but Faze, who was usually there, was left absent, leaving an empty space as it zoomed out of the living room without the kids seen. The TV slowly fades to static as the scenery outside was nighttime during a thunderstorm. Instead of showing clips from different Nick Jr. shows, and instead showed pictures of the characters' fates, starting with Blue and ending with Tickety. Another change was made so that no music nor vocals were heard, only the sounds of thunder and heavy rain. The last change in note was the Nick Jr. monkey dolls that sat on the red wagon with their heads decapitated with cotton spilling out. There was also scratches and bruises on the doll, as the girl pulling the wagon wasn't there. It instead would stay there in the rain as it slowly faded to black. I could also make out a distorted, low-pitched robotic voice slowly saying, "See you next time." After that, the closing credits played, but the music was absent instead of ambient music of a very old piano tune. But I swore it would legitimately sound like A Mad World Without You from that one Friday Night Funkin' mod named Mario's Madness played in the background. Only that it was in a slight low pitch. Yes, I know Friday Night Funkin'. I've heard about Mario's Madness version 2. It's a great mod and I recommend you play it. Instead of showing Blue and her friends, it showed photographs of them one by one. After the credits, a slow, high-pitched robotic voice said the following text to appear on screen. "Is this what I wanted? Am I satisfied? And now I'm standing tall, yet all I want to do is hide inside this empty shell, this husk, this world, this empty hell. I wander through. My word reigns true. My world is mad, and I am too, without you." Once that comes to an end, the screen goes black along with the text turning white, resulting in the background fading back to the now burnt house as the text slowly fades away. Inside we see Tickety. Still feeling guilty with herself while having her hands on her face in shame. She stood still, and before the roof above her collapsed onto her and fire emerged from the rubble, for the page flipped over to the left as the ball bounced in from the right of the screen. But Blue wasn't present due to her being killed by the weird clock. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the ball deflated as the camera zoomed out of the book before the book closed itself. The front cover of the book, however, had a blank ball print, a red one, and the scene around it was grayscaled, and all of the books were rusty and covered with spiderwebs and dust. The screen then faded to black before showing the closing logos, and they weren't as normal as they could get. The Nick Jr. clay model variant looked like it was melting in a black and red background as fire was burning from the soon puddle of clay that showed the Nickelodeon bone ident, but the bone was in deep shades of red with blood splatters on it. Many cracks and bite marks on the bone, with the word mark was pitch black. As the logo was shown, a slowed and demonically toned pitch of the Nodalkin jingle played in reverse. Bone. Lastly, the Paramount closing logo played. It was the same as the opening one, but the image was heavily distorted and shaded red entirely. As a disturbing audio track that sounded it came from a nightmare played in the background. That song was a distorted version of Hush Little Baby with reverse emergency alert systems tones in the background until it slowly fades to red static and shuts off. Unexpectedly, there was something shown after the logo. There was a black screen with a red rectangle. There was a red rectangle outline that showed Blue, Steve, the Spice Family, Slippery, Shovel and Pail, Mailbox, Chickadee, Side Table, Periwinkle, the cat from earlier, and SpongeBob. However, all of them had black squares that censored their faces, except the cat, SpongeBob, and Chickadee, as she had her eyes scribbled in black and had a frown on her face. In the background, I could hear a heavily slowed down version of the Game Over sound from Super Mario World, as red text slowly faded on screen, reading out "The End." The image slowly faded out and faded to a message that said "Happy Halloween" from Nickelodeon, with the Nickelodeon logo in the middle and the Nick.com byline. Byline at the bottom. The message faded out and the tape finally came to an end with the gray screen of death with a long beeping tone in the background. After taking the tape out of the VCR player, the power in my house abruptly went black for a hot second before turning back on. That night, epilogue. That night I couldn't sleep as my mind was focused on the episode I'd watched. The next morning, however, I would find the VHS tape gone. I tried my hardest to look for it everywhere, but no luck. I simply remember putting the tape back on top of my VCR. I then started hearing news that people watched the tape reportedly died or became bloodthirsty animals who were trying to kill others. Luckily for me, none of that happened. However, 3 nights later, I had a nightmare. A nightmare was me biting my friends, eating steak or meat like a wild animal, and acting like a wild dog, with me barking at random people at times. I could also speak a language no one had ever spoken before, and sometimes my voice would often go low due to signs of puberty. I felt like a werewolf who wanted nothing but blood, meat, corpses, and anything else. Because in one part of my dream, I became a werewolf. Yes, this took place at night, even though I was dreaming. My ears extended on top of my head, my muscles grew bigger, along with my hands growing sharp claws and my skin furrier. That tailbone grows into a tail. My clothes became ripped to shreds. My voice deepened a lot. My fangs grew with my mouth bleeding, and my eyes became bloodshot red. I let out a howl before losing control of myself. Luckily, I woke up, realizing that it was all just a dream. I sent an email to Angela Santomero, the creator of Blue's Clues. Here's what she said. Dear Brian, I'm very sorry you had to see that episode. That episode was made by Andrew Skinner and Helene Brown. We had 9 Story USA out of the blue. didn't know that they made that episode, but we rejected from airing on Noggin and Nick Jr., Paramount Global, Nickelodeon, Noin Story. Because of my viewing of that tape, I'm kind of regretting what they did. Many months have passed by and I still can't get that feeling out of my head. I just have one question though. Is your end near? Update. I have footage of the opening and closing of the tape that my friend emailed me. Viewing the link is under this text below. Credit to Toodlehound Panda for the making of this video. Final note from author. Hey, I'm neither here. I'd like to take a moment to thank y'all for reading this story. I know it took like a month or two to complete the story, but I'm glad to finally finish the story. I'd also like to thank Elijah Six, the Satanic Sponge, and Tanner for making all this possible. Without the weird clock, none of this would have happened. Shout out to my kitchen for burning out due to cooking the hell out of y'all. Cause after all of the wasted years, I need a taste of your fear. I need a little taste of blood. And we can finally become one. You're everything that I wanted. Just a single bite and I'm through. There's no need to beg a bargain, because all I need is you. Nether Munchkins. Silly Billy, endless ASL Twitter finger, 8 ball of coke. Your original Wear Clock creator here. Y'all should really read this pasta. Nether put lots of effort into it, and it would mean the world to me if you guys decided to read this masterpiece of a story and always remember. Molded, rotting, slowly decaying, each pun in each line. Was it always pretending? You're no longer here. Our buddy, our legacy, it's over. Satanic note. I am the guy who inspired Nether to make this retake. Sure, it may seem it has the cliches in it like the THX one, but I can assure you this is an actual original retake of a story. Make sure to have a good time and remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Buy gold. Buy. P.S. You've done quite enough now. We played along for too many rounds for your pride. When will it suffice? Tanner. Seems like there's no other stupid
deal on the phone you want and the phone plan that's right for
Coming to theaters.
Don't try that at home. Don't try that at home.
Load Up, coming to video this summer.
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Oh, hi there. Faith here. Look, I really don't know why you're here, but...
Wait.
Listen, you don't have to do this. We could talk about this. No! No, 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 no!
Right now, you can get
Okay, that's the one video. Now, let's see the other video.
Is this what I wanted? Am I satisfied? And now I'm standing tall, yet all I want to do is hide inside this temptation. This us I am to without you.
Oh, I scroll down to avoid the jump scares. Well then. It took almost like 2 hours to read that story. What fun. Oh, I'm done here. Excuse me. I want to try streaming again. I'll be right back.